I'm 34 years old, and I've been married for almost 4 years now. When I think back on it, I realize that the entire relationship has been a struggle, almost from the start. I remember thinking, early on, that things might work out, but deep down, I knew I was just hoping. Hoping that the good moments would somehow outweigh the bad ones. But they didn't. My wife has serious anger issues. I don't know if it's something she's always had, or if it's something that developed over time, but it's like a switch flips in her whenever she drinks. And let me tell you, she drinks a lot. It's not like 1 or 2 drinks after a long day, or a glass of wine with dinner. It's more like a few beers, or a couple shots of whiskey, just to get through the evening. And every time that switch flips, and the woman I knew fades away, replaced by someone else. Someone angry. Someone mean. Over the years, I've found myself enduring emotional and physical abuse from her, more emotional than anything, but the physical stuff has happened too. There have been moments when she's shoved me, or slapped me, and every time, I tried to shrug it off, to tell myself that it wasn't that bad, that maybe it was just a one-time thing. But it kept happening. Again and again. And every time, I'd tell myself, it's going to get better. She doesn't mean it. She's just having a hard time. She'll change. But she didn't. I knew, from the very beginning, that something wasn't right, that the dynamic between us was off. But every time I tried to bring it up, every time I'd sit her down and tell her how I felt, she would shut me down. She'd brush me off, like I was the one being unreasonable. Like I was the problem for just wanting to feel heard, to feel understood. It's not my intention to hurt you, she'd say, as if those words should make everything okay. But the thing is, intentions don't matter if they're not followed by actions. And her actions, her refusal to change, her complete disregard for my feelings, told me everything I needed to know. It wasn't just that she wouldn't change. She'd dismiss me entirely. She'd act like my feelings didn't matter, like I was overreacting. And when I'd press her, she'd say things like, "What do you want from me? Just divorce me, then." It felt like she was daring me to leave. And I didn't. I couldn't. I was weak. Maybe that's harsh, but that's how I felt. I couldn't walk away, even though I knew I should. I didn't want to break up our family. I didn't want our daughter to grow up without both of us. So I stayed. I stayed, and I clung to the hope that somehow, someway, I could make things better. That I could change myself enough to survive this, to survive her. I told myself that if I just kept trying, if I just kept enduring, I could keep the family intact. But looking back now, I see it clearly. I wasn't being noble. I wasn't being self-sacrificial. I was being a coward. I was afraid to leave, afraid of the fallout, afraid of the unknown. I couldn't stand up for myself, and I didn't have the courage to admit that maybe, just maybe, I deserved better. I stayed because I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't. But through all of this, I stayed loyal. I stayed faithful. Even when she didn't deserve it. Even when she hurt me. Even when it seemed like I was the only one holding on, I never once strayed. Not once did I consider cheating, until that one night. I've put up with so much over the years. The emotional abuse. The passive-aggressive behavior. The total disregard for my needs. But what really broke me, what finally pushed me to the edge, was the money situation. We've never had any major financial problems. We've always had enough to get by, and I don't try to control how she spends her money. I've never been the type to snoop or ask a million questions about where the money goes. But one day, I caught her in a lie. She was hiding money from me, being sneaky about where it was going. And when I confronted her, she didn't apologize. No, she threw her usual line at me. "What do you want from me? Divorce me. I've already apologized." It was like she didn't even care. It was like her apology didn't matter because her actions were still the same. I wasn't enough. My feelings didn't matter. We weren't partners. I was just there to fill a role. But I stayed. I stayed because I kept telling myself that things would get better for our daughter's sake. I loved being a dad. I loved spending time with her. I kept hoping that things might change, that maybe I could just push through it. But every day felt like I was drowning. It felt like I couldn't breathe under the weight of all the resentment I was carrying. Then came the trip. She went away to visit her family for 2 days, and I stayed home because I couldn't get time off work. I texted her that morning, just to check in, to let her know I was thinking about her. But she didn't reply. No call. No. Hey, how's your day going? Nothing. Later that night, I told her how I felt, that I felt ignored, forgotten, but she just apologized and still didn't reach out until she was on her flight back home. It hurt. It hurt more than I can explain. It was like she didn't care about me at all. Like she couldn't even spare a moment to show that I mattered. And that's when I cracked. I kept putting up with it. I kept pushing my own emotions down, hoping that I was doing the right thing, but it was becoming unbearable. I didn't ask her to change for me. I didn't ask for grand gestures or anything special. All I wanted was some basic respect, some basic care. But I never got it. And then I met her. I wasn't looking for anything. I didn't plan it. But one night, feeling completely broken, emotionally drained, and at my lowest point, I went out by myself. I ended up at a bar. That's where I met her. We started talking. For the first time in years, I felt seen. I felt like someone was actually listening to me. She laughed with me. She made me feel important. And in that moment, I felt like the weight I had been carrying around was finally lifted, even if just for a little while. It was like breathing fresh air for the first time in ages. To make a long story short, I ended up hooking up with her. I don't know how my wife found out. Maybe it was the guilt, maybe it was my own shame, but the next morning, it was clear something was wrong. I told her everything. I didn't hide it. I didn't make excuses. I admitted that it was my fault. I admitted that I was wrong. And that's been eating me up inside. Every single day. I regret it. I regret it more than I can put into words. I've lost the respect of the people I care about most. I've hurt the woman I vowed to spend my life with. I know what I did was unforgivable. But if I'm being honest with myself, I don't think I would have done it if my wife had treated me differently. She didn't deserve it. No one does. She didn't deserve me to hurt her like that. But deep down, a small part of me can't help but think that maybe, just maybe, if she hadn't ignored me for all those years, if she had cared even a little bit, things might have turned out differently. I've been loyal. I've been faithful. Even when she didn't deserve it. But now I'm torn. Maybe I'm just making excuses for myself, but part of me feels like it's the truth. I feel like I'm still a good man who made a terrible mistake. Right now, I'm in the middle of a divorce. We've been separated for 3 months now, and it's been quiet. The only communication we've had is about our daughter, the logistics of co-parenting. But this week she reached out. We talked. For the first time in months, we actually opened up to each other. She told me she's been seeing a therapist, trying to figure out what went wrong. She said she doesn't want the divorce anymore. She wants to try to fix things. She wants us to go to therapy together. She even brought up books and materials she's been reading, showing me she's trying to make an effort. And now I'm torn. She seems sincere. But can I really go back after everything? Can I forgive her for the years of abuse? The emotional neglect? The feeling of being invisible? I know I was wrong for cheating. I know I hurt her. But my scars are real. They're still there. I'm conflicted. She says she's willing to work on herself. But can I trust her again? Can I ever trust her again after everything that's happened? Part of me wants to believe her. Part of me wants to believe that we can fix this, that we can somehow heal. But another part of me wonders if I'm just setting myself up for more pain. I've been hurt so much already. I'm scared. I'm scared of being hurt again. But at the same time, I love our daughter. I want to try for her. I want to try to make it work, for us, for the family we once dreamed of having. I just don't know what to do. I don't know what the right choice is. I'm lost. I'm looking for guidance, for someone to help me find clarity. I've been in this place for so long, and I don't know what the next step is. I'm putting it out there. What should I do?